By the esteemed sports writer for the San Antonio Express News. It is the real...
Could be... Is it?
Or
it might be the fake.
The real Ben Baby. Ben, hi.
How are you doing, Greg? How are y'all doing? Y'all doing all right?
We're doing fine. How are things down in Region 4?
It's good. We've got a couple big games going on down here in Class 6A, so it's I'd say things are going pretty well down here.
Of course, you're speaking particularly about 25 6A, which has swept its way into the regional final. All four teams are in Division 1. It is Converse Judson taking on Smithson Valley, and then Cibolo Steele taking on Schertz Clemens. Rematches abound. Are you prepared to pull a Craig Way and just declare unequivocally that 25 6A, just hop on board and declare it's the best district in the state?
It's so hard to say. If that's the best district in the state by far, we know it's the best district in the region. I mean, that's not a question at this point. But at the Class 6A level, it's an interesting deal when you look at it. We wrote about it last week in the Express News. And I've always thought Region 4 is a little top-heavy compared to the other regions in 6A in the state. I think the top of the Region 4 can compete with some of the best teams in Texas without a doubt, but it's not as deep across the board, and you might be seeing that. That may be one of the reasons why 25 6A has done so well in the playoffs. But with that being said, I mean, it's definitely in the conversation for being one of the best districts in Texas when you look at the teams and the quality that they've shown in the postseason these last few weeks.
It's certainly been impressive. We'll start kind of backwards when we start with Division 2, the rematch there between Schertz Clemens and Cibolo Steele. With Schertz Clemens, you would think that because Steele kind of ran away from them in the first one, their first matchup, I think it would be pretty popular to say, oh, well, Steele's going to be the favorite here. But there's a lot of mitigating circumstances, not only to that game, but also to this game. A lot of injuries now potentially surrounding Steele. I'm not sure if Clemens had Frank Harris in that game. When you look at this Steele-Clemens matchup in a rematch, who has the advantage there?
Well, like you said, I think it might depend on all the mitigating factors, and we'll see what happens as the week progresses. Last week against Del Rio, Steele junior quarterback Xavier Martin, who's committed to Texas Tech, he got knocked out of the game on the first snap of Steele's game there. He got knocked out with an ankle injury, couldn't put any weight on it. It's been a couple of days, haven't heard any updates yet, and as you might expect, I mean, it might be difficult trying to get updates from coaches this time of year when it comes to stuff like that. And then with running back Bryson Finley, a senior, who's also committed to Texas Tech, he looks like he picked up a knee injury late in the fourth quarter of that game against Del Rio. So Steele could be without its starting quarterback and starting running back against Clemens. And like you said, Clemens was without Frank Harris for the most part of the first game between the two teams. Harris got knocked out of the game after he was hit by A&M commit Mark Jackson. So, last game wasn't really indicative of how things might have shook out. Excuse me.
No, it's fine.
If Harris wasn't there. And but we'll see. If Martin and Denley aren't available for Steele, I mean, that game could be a toss-up.
It really could, especially the way that Clemens is going right now. We're talking with Ben Baby, the San Antonio Express News. Follow him on Twitter at Ben_Baby. And then on the other side, the D1 game, I think, is really fascinating. You've got a Converse Judson team that seems to be hitting its stride right now, getting a rematch against a Smithson Valley team that gave Judson everything it wanted and more in their first matchup. I look at this, and I want to dive into the numbers a little bit more as the week goes on, but I look at this Judson game with Smithson Valley as pretty much a coin flip. I'm curious to see if you agree.
I definitely agree, and I think that's kind of been the thought around that game. If they were to meet in this round of the playoffs, that it would be a toss-up given the way both teams have been playing. Judson's been good, but I think they looked their best last week against Laredo United. And Laredo United isn't necessarily a bad team at all, but Judson really kind of ran away with that one. And then on the other hand, Smithson Valley had a really quality win against Harlingen. And people forget that Harlingen, there's a lot of flack that Valley teams usually get, especially around here in San Antonio. But Harlingen gave Reagan a really good game earlier in the year, and now we know that that Harlingen was the real deal this year. So I think that Smithson Valley win looks really good going into this week. And with the way both of those teams are playing right now, I mean, that game could go in any direction. And, the other X factor is, the coaching staff at Smith Valley led by Larry Hill. He's done a tremendous job with those kids this year, really getting the most out of them. And then, Judson's got so many athletes, and Sean McAuliffe, their coach, has really settled in his second year with the program. So I think that game, you really don't know how that's going to play out. But it'll be interesting to see, if Smith Valley's defense can slow down. Their defense is really good in the secondary. Well, Judson doesn't really throw the ball a whole lot, so Judson may have the advantage in that aspect. But we'll see how it plays out at Alamo Stadium this Saturday.
And the biggest problem there is that the Judson-Smith Valley game is at 1 at Alamo Stadium, and the Steele-Clemens game is at 4 at the Alamo Dome. So, Ben, where are you going to be?
I will indeed be in the Alamo Dome, not just because it's inside, but I think Steele Clemens is going to be, they're both going to be fantastic games. People aren't going to pick, if you pick either game to go to, you're not going to pick a bad one. But I've been following Steele this whole postseason, and I've thought from the get-go that they've been a contender to win the 6A Division II title. And so now, but if they don't have Martin and Denley going forward, that may change things. And Steele, when you go ahead and if you look down the line, they may match up better against the likes of Katy, who they'll most likely face in the state semifinals, because I don't think Manuel's going to beat them this year. And that's that's how I think on that game there. But Steele's defensive speed is so great, and it's been so dominant throughout the whole postseason that you wonder if that's not a better matchup for Katy than Clemens. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if Clemens goes on, or what might be better for the region or here and there. But there's going to be about 10,000 people that will show up at least for that Steele Clemens game. So I'm excited to see that one.
We're talking with Ben Baby, the San Antonio Express News here on DCTF Live. Get involved in the conversation, hashtag DCTF Live. Ben, besides 25-6A, it hasn't been a really remarkable year for in the playoffs for teams in the San Antonio area. Are there any other games maybe in the smaller school level that you've got your eye on in your coverage area?
Right now, Cuero is kind of on the fringe of our coverage area. It's probably a school that we covered, a while ago, back when circulations were much bigger and the newspaper industry was in a better shape there. But I was really impressed with what they did against Navarro, because Navarro was a quality team in the 4A Division II bracket. And Cuero had kind of struggled throughout the season, but, give a lot of credit to that team. And of course, the Gobblers winning on Thanksgiving week, shouldn't really be a shock to anybody there. If there's any team that would have some little mojo going on that holiday week, it'd be Cuero. But they did a tremendous job of slowing down Navarro's offense and really putting up points against a quality defense. They were probably our best shot at winning or playing for a state title, beneath the 6A level. So for them to do what they did was pretty impressive. And then, Bremont beating Fall City in 2A Division II, and East Bernard beating Blanco in 3A Division II really weren't surprises there. East Bernard and Bremont, respectively, have great teams this year. So, it's just the way that things shake out, especially down here in Region 4. The lower classifications tend to be a little stronger when it gets to this part, when it comes to this part of the playoffs.
He is Ben Baby. He waves the flag for Region 4 for the San Antonio Express News, and you can see his flag waving on Twitter at Ben_Baby. Ben, I hope you have a great week, pal.
Hey, thank you. Thank you all for having me.
There he goes, Ben Baby, San Antonio Express News.